Alright, so picture this. You're sitting in your room, shuffling through your Yu-Gi-Oh bulk after a long day at your 9 to 5 shop. Why? Well, because you're a nerd, but that's besides the point. Suddenly, your mind starts to feel impulsive. Gears begin turning, wah 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 wah, neurons begin activating, wah 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 wah, and then, bam, that thought pops into your mind. What if I built a new Yu-Gi-Oh deck? Sure, you're like 6 figures into debt to the IRS, it's 3 a.m. and you haven't eaten dinner for some reason, which kind of sucks because most places are closed on Uber Eats, but you know what? You know what? See, minus the part about it being 3 a.m., I've been in this same exact situation too. Wanting to build a deck on the fly is literally a rite of passage for Yu-Gi-Oh players. Like, this is basically our version of a holy baptization. I find, however, that making that initial decision on what exact deck to build is pretty tricky. One deck might have some special charm to it, another might inspire a bit of nostalgia in me, but then another might have a really gripping gimmick to it. Yet, despite how expansive Yu-Gi-Oh is with it's hundreds on hundreds of unique archetypes, there are just some archetypes that just don't quite work for me. And look, I ain't no picky guy. Ameno? Tap. Power? Tap. Makama? I've only watched season 1 of Chainsaw Man, by the way, so don't at me any spoilers or...
You're bad, bro!
Basically, what I'm trying to say is, there are just some Yu-Gi-Oh decks that I outright won't touch. Regardless of how appealing some players may make them out to be, I'll just say no. And I'm sure you feel the same exact way. There are some archetypes that will inspire people to write 50-page guides or make whole YouTube channels around, but then fall flat for others. Why is this? The easy explanation of this conundrum is that everyone has their own preferences. Yep, that's the main gist of the video. You can click off now, go play some Fortnite. Or, and hear me out, you can actually hear me out. What does this statement entail exactly? What does it mean to have an opinion? Well, let's start with a deck's playstyle, one of the defining pillars of competitive card games like Yu-Gi-Oh! See, one of the best things about this children's card game is the various ways you can win. You could play slow and steady, amassing resources until you completely overwhelm your opponent. You could turn your AirPods up to max volume, crack your knuckles, and start vomiting your hand out in complete ignorance of your opponent's interactions. You could even commit sins against our Lord and Savior by playing stun. These are just broad generalizations. Wait until you actually start digging into the flavor of some of these archetypes. Take Gladiator Beast for example, an absolute banger of an archetype. If you're familiar with this deck, you're a real one in my books. Their whole gimmick revolves around their monsters tagging out during the battle phase after they attack. The individual cards that get summoned from the deck can then trigger a unique effect. Bestiari will pop a spell and trap, Vermilla will pop a monster, and Liquori will become big. You feel like a warrior in the arena, or maybe a fighting game expert playing this deck. Sure, this archetype has fallen out of favor in the modern era, but the way they play has carved out a solid and iconic place for them in the game's history. Fast forward to the present, Fire King, if you ignore its current meta dominance, rely on popping their own monsters to generate both immediate and long-term advantage. Many of their monsters return to the hand or field a turn after they're destroyed, though some may instead search you for a card or interact with your opponent. This not only appeals to the general concept of a phoenix being reborn every time it dies, but also pays some level of tribute to the religion the archetype loosely draws from, namely that of Hinduism, where reincarnation is actually a core tenet. Heck, something as simple as Suship has death. The fact the deck's primary extra deck summoning mechanic is XYZ summoning gives you the imagery of meticulously layering together a nice juicy sushi roll as if you were some 5-star Michelin chef working alongside the likes of Gordon Ramsay. But not every playstyle is going to work for everyone. I remember when the Salamangreat structure deck came out in 2019. Everyone, and I literally mean everyone in my friend group was gushing over the deck. It was strong, it was reliable, it gave you 3 Ash Blossoms so you could pretend you weren't poor anymore, but I didn't buy it. I mean, for one, I had Ash at the time, but I also just found the Cyber Stratagem bland. Summon Sunlight Wolf, set your Raigeki Break and Solemn Judgment, make sure Gazelle is in hand for follow-up. Though I suppose even if it wasn't, your opponent will probably forget about Sunlight Wolf's effect and summon to its own for you. Next turn, rinse and repeat. There was nothing wrong with other people playing it, but Salamangreat didn't quite sit well with me. Labyrinth is another deck that strikes this distaste for me. Sure, the deck can get pretty involved at times when you're not just flipping Eradicator on your opponent, having to manage your chainlinks for example, making sure to utilize your furnitures whenever you can, and then being picky on when to actually activate your key trap so you don't get blown out. I can appreciate what the deck is and would like to emphasize once again that there is nothing wrong with playing it, but I just can't pilot it myself. On the other hand, Magical Muskets, like Zam. My friends made fun of me for playing that deck. I will admit, Salamangreat Great Roar would basically bend me over if I didn't have Last Stand, but the flavor on the deck, being able to activate spells and traps from hand like I was some sort of gunslinging goon, that was Yu-Gi-Oh for me. Essentially, what I'm trying to say here is that, though the game has so many different archetypes to try out, you're not obligated to play each one at all. You'll naturally gravitate towards stuff that's familiar to you or that piques your interest. Meanwhile, there might be certain cards that just don't light that spark inside of you. That's the whole appeal of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's so damn vast in what it offers that it can attract people of different interests and of different backgrounds from across the world. Of course, it wasn't just the playstyle that kept me off of Salad and Labyrinth. Art was another key component. A few of you might be thinking, Toon, that's a ridiculous reason. Who cares about what the cards look like as long as I'm winning? Well, bask upon this. Let's back up for a second. Though video games and card games are undeniably different mediums, I'd say they both definitely place emphasis on one variable: immersion. When it comes to video games, immersion can mean the difference between a memorable experience and a forgettable detour. The game Bloodborne, for example, completely captivated me as soon as I booted it up, with its beaten up, decrepit Victorian-style city plagued with maddened citizens and grossly mutated beasts. Then you get absolutely butt blasted by this one dude, wake up, and suddenly you get hit with the like, come on, you gotta admit that's pretty cool. As creepy as this game is, the amount of detail From Software put into it absolutely sells you on the idea that you yourself are exploring this broken world, trying to uncover the dark secrets that led to its downfall. On the other hand, you have Pokemon Sword and Shield, which, look, I'm a Pokemon stan. All you need to do is wave a Lechonk in front of me, and suddenly I'll forget about all of your egregious bugs and glitches. But you can't deny that, for their first title on the Switch of all things, Game Freak gave us a bare bones, dry meal with its iconic N64 trees and its purely decorative houses. Everything felt cheap rather than engaging. Did I have fun playing it? Yeah, admittedly, but do I remember much about its world or about its people like I do Bloodborne? Did I feel like I was living in a timeline where I could tame these cute and surprisingly dangerous creatures to call them my friends? Not really. Card games are no different. Being able to reel you into an escapism fantasy only helps them sell their product. However, card games have the extra challenge of having to try and convey these feelings, these emotions, without music, dialogue, or cutscenes. Like, imagine the iconic climax of The Empire Strikes Back, where Darth Vader tells Luke the truth about his heritage.
I am your father.
Strip away the action so that it's a still frame, take away the whistle of the wind surging through the Cloud City halls and the quivering fear in Luke's voice, and mute John Williams' beautiful score. Sure, you might get a sense of what's going on from the image itself, but it's not nearly the same as it was before. Playstyle, in the context of Yu-Gi-Oh! At least, definitely aids in immersing the player, but art elevates the thought even more. After all, these little snapshots of, say, a noble penguin storming into battle, or an all-powerful wizard beckoning the stars to his aid, are your primary impression of a card, because God knows, Yu-Gi-Oh's players' first thought isn't to read. Having a well thought out and well illustrated archetype can really hook you into its premise. Hell, this is a big proponent of why I chose punk as the basis for my channel. The cyberpunk vibes, the unique colors that pop out of you, it's just a perfect amalgamation of certain things I appreciate in life. In the past, I've also indulged in things like Necros and windups. Warriors wearing the dead bodies of legendary creatures as they charge into battle, cute toys that can hand loop you because they're not actually cute, and a bunch of psychotic machines? Sign me up. Though, all of this enthusiasm out of the way, not every archetype is going to hold up per person. Art of all things is completely subjective. Like, remember when someone literally just taped a banana to a wall and people freaked out over how creative that was? I'm not kidding, by the way, there's an article linked in the description. There are some archetypes I find absolutely stunning in Yu-Gi-Oh! That you might just find ugly or plain average at best. On the flip side, I might think something looks too grotesque, but others might appreciate the unique flavor in it. When Mutants came out in 2020, for example, I was very lukewarm to the concept. I probably offended like all three of you players out there. The card art was a little too dull color-wise for me, and the creatures in the art looked a bit weird. Ironic, I know, I'm weird too. However, if you talk to one of my close friends, he was completely engrossed in the concept of having these horrid, modified laboratory creatures escaping captivity and wreaking havoc on the facility. You know, now that I'm saying that out loud, they kind of sound cool. Again, this is the benefit of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's so flexible a card game that the creators can afford to have things from stereotypical waifu bait to cosmic horrors that will keep you up at night. Everyone comes into the game with their own story, their own lore mind you, and this results in the art of certain archetypes appealing to them more than others. Though, speaking of lore, yep, that's the next topic in today's video. Wasn't that kinda slick? Anyways, playstyle, as we've talked about, tends to appeal to the more technical side of Yu-Gi-Oh!, making sure you actually enjoy the gameplay. Art immerses you in the fantasy your cards bring about and gives you some eye candy to distract you from whatever your opponent is doing across from you. The lore though, it'll make you feel like for a game that started out with random unrelated things like a small ball of fur and an accurate description of my deck, it's crazy how far Yu-Gi-Oh! Has come as a medium to tell stories. Two great examples of this are the Ashen and Entity archetypes. Both only have a handful of cards as of me making this video, and yet boast so much depth in terms of what they stand for and what they reference. Go check out my 2 videos on them, by the way, shameful channel plug. Beyond this though, you got some whole ass sagas in this supposedly children's card game. And I mean like feature-length films with sequels that, unlike the stuff Hollywood puts out nowadays, respect and even build upon the stories that came before them. Take the Dual Terminal lore for example, which I'll refer to as DT for now. You start out with a bunch of mischievous worms invading the DT world after having crashed from outer space on an asteroid. Out of nowhere, the Ally of Justice Gestapo rush in to stop them, alongside some of the tribes present on the planet. Decades later, another struggle is realized as the Chem Knights unite with the Constellars to take down your average JRPG final boss. And then, another several years later, the sacrilegious corruption of these long-dead heroes happens, come the rise of the Shaddoll, only later to be countered by the marvelous Zephyra. Oh, you want to talk about the World Chalice lore instead? That's my shit. You got such a simple premise at first. 3 unlikely heroes set out to find all 5 World Legacy landmarks to rid the world of the Crawler menace. But then, out of nowhere, an insane plot twist happens. Lee, the World Chalice Fairy, who was supposed to be our hero's guide, is actually the true villain. Ib is forced to sacrifice herself amidst the tearful eyes of Aurum and Langrissu to prevent the creature from fulfilling its plans. And yet, the act doesn't even matter, as Lee still advances her plan over Ib's corpse. Years later, a split Aurum and Langrissu have to reunite in order to prevent the second impact of Evangelion. There's more incredible stories I'm not even touching up on here, by the way. Branded lore, Risa's Starfrost lore, whatever the heck was going on between Chris Ron, Zodiac, and True Draco, I wouldn't know. There's even some smaller stories like that of the Maiden in the Forbidden cards, or Gaga Gigo and Marauding Captain. These little to large details imbue life into the cards. They immerse you in a gripping narrative you otherwise wouldn't have experienced. Now imagine, after explaining some of these tidbits to someone, they just come out and say, I don't care.
You what?
But as disappointing as that can be to hear as someone who does appreciate lore, you have to remember that the game's primary objective isn't to push these stories. Similar to the concept of immersion I referred to when talking about Yu-Gi-Oh's art, lore only helps Konami sell their product. Thus, it should follow that some people just don't play the game to indulge in these tales. For those people that are actual lore junkies though, they may not appreciate a certain aspect of one story versus the other. Remember my little spiel calling the DT and World Chalice sagas blockbuster worthy? Well, not everyone is going to be fond of a given blockbuster. Sure, the majority of people might enjoy a movie, but there will be that minuscule fraction that didn't quite vibe with it. Take Dune 2 for example. It was critically acclaimed and loved by casual audiences. Hell, I find it a masterpiece with its triumphant score, all the wide shots of the open desert engrossing you in every frame, and a complex narrative that has incredibly deep themes lodged within it. Yet 5% of people had other things to say. Maybe the sci-fi genre isn't their thing. Maybe they got tired of staring at sand for half the movie.
I don't like sand.
Maybe they didn't like how Paul Atreides treated Chani, Zendaya's character. Don't worry, Zendaya, I got you. Essentially, when you find someone that doesn't like an archetype because of its lore, just think back to a movie, TV series, or book you heard about, but couldn't quite get into. That same exact phenomenon occurs with Yu-Gi-Oh! Okay, we talked about playstyle, we talked about art, we talked about lore. There are definitely more niche reasons to not play a deck that I will unfortunately not be covering in today's video. Though there is one more reason I want to touch up upon, and it hints a bit more at the themes of this video. See, there's a 0.0001% chance that while you're throwing your gacha currency at your phone, that single out-of-pocket individual gets summoned claiming that they don't like a deck because, quote unquote, just cuz. Like, huh? So not only do you already not like my absolutely perfect deck that's definitely tier 0 and beats the meta, but your reasoning for this is because you can? Like, what are you? This is where I take off my comfy little Pokemon hat and put on my dad cap. As I've stated throughout the video multiple times, Yu-Gi-Oh! Can be interpreted in many ways. It can be a means to compete and earn prizing, a way to live our desired fantasies out at the table, or a way to express our interests. The sheer scale of the game and all of its unique archetypes gives way to so much diversity that you can't get anywhere else. But ultimately, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a hobby, an opportunity to meet new people, to make new memories, and to overall just be happy. I spent this entire video trying to explain to you some of the reasons why one person might not play a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck that you might otherwise enjoy. And it's entirely possible that some of these reasons might have bothered some of you. Why wouldn't they like the way my deck plays? Why don't they appreciate this archetype's art and lore like I do? It's perfectly human in nature to feel this way, to feel this distaste. But remember that everyone on this planet is unique. Not every player you come across is going to have the same exact sentiments as you have. After all, think about all the people that don't even play Yu-Gi-Oh!, let alone play your deck. Are they bad because they don't play this trading card game? No, that's the whole point of life. You're going to come across people that disagree with you, that challenge you. The people who may not like a deck you enjoy are enjoying this hobby in a way they want to, meeting others they want to meet, making their own memories, and learning to be happy in the ways they deem best. How is that any different from you? Learn to be less judgmental, to be happy that, in spite of your differences, you all share one common interest. You enjoy playing Yu-Gi-Oh! You know, I'm sitting here editing this video and wondering, how the hell do other YouTubers edit these long-ass video essays? Like, I enjoy getting to add a dick joke here or there, panning over Google photos of Yu-Gi-Oh! Card art, but for 2 hours straight? You editors better be getting the cream of the crop because I know I ain't. Anyhow, thank you so much for watching today's video. Your viewership helps grow the channel a ton. If you genuinely enjoyed what I had to say, make sure to drop a like below, and if you're not subscribed, why aren't you subscribed by the way, feel free to. Though, more importantly, if y'all got any video ideas you want me to flesh out, send them my way. Otherwise, I'll admittedly continue to just pull stuff out of my ass. Yep, that's all I had to say. Goodbye, and have a good night.